Hey, stop right there. Put those down.
Okay.
Now.
I'm restocking and auditing inventory.
I said put them down. You work here?
Yes, I do.
Where's your badge?
In my pocket. I
You're
run this
coming with me.
facility.
Stop
Don't
resisting.
touch me.
Stop,
you need to
stop,
verify.
check my credentials.
Agent Reynolds had no idea what he just walked into. In the next 6 hours, his career would be over. 3 federal investigations would start, and a $19.9 million lawsuit would begin. All because he refused to believe a black woman belonged in a private terminal. The woman he put in handcuffs? Her name was Patricia Timmons Goodson. She was 53 years old. She was a sitting state Supreme Court justice. She had been a judge for 27 years. She had ruled on over 4,000 cases. She served on the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. Her documents he called fake. A U.S. passport. Federal judge credentials. A Pentagon security clearance. And the security cameras? They caught everything. Including the moment Reynolds said, "Your papers look fake. People like you don't fly private." Before I continue, let me ask you, have you ever been treated unfairly by someone in power? Drop your answer in the comments. But Agent Reynolds had no idea who he just put in handcuffs. Justice Patricia Timmons Goodson was not just any traveler. She was one of the most respected judges in North Carolina. She made history as the first black woman on the North Carolina Supreme Court. President Obama picked her for the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. She went to Harvard Law School. She graduated with top honors. Before becoming a judge, she served in the U.S. Army as a lawyer. She reached the rank of lieutenant colonel. She had a Pentagon security clearance. Over 27 years, she ruled on more than 4,000 cases. Many of those cases were about civil rights. Many were about people being treated unfairly because of their race. Now, here is what makes this even more interesting. Justice Timmons Goodson had used this exact private terminal 14 times before. Her name was in the system. Her photo was in the federal database. All Reynolds had to do was check. On this Wednesday, she was just trying to fly home. She had been at a judge's meeting in Washington, D.C. She wanted to catch her 4:15 flight to Fayetteville. It should have been a simple trip. But someone decided she did not belong there. Agent Derek Reynolds had a reputation at Charlotte Douglas Airport. And it was not a good one. Reynolds was 47 years old. He had worked at the airport for 9 years. He was the senior agent at the private terminal. He had 4 junior agents working under him. Here is what the public did not know. In the 3 years before this day, Reynolds had 11 formal complaints against him. Every single one involved travelers of color. In 2023, he held a black businessman for 2 hours. The man's crime? His laptop looked suspicious. That man turned out to be an executive at IBM. He filed a complaint. Nothing happened to Reynolds. In 2024, Reynolds accused a Latino family of having fake passports. They were American citizens. Their family had been in the U.S. for 3 generations. He got a warning. That was it. Later in 2024, he questioned a black female pilot. He did not believe she was really a pilot. She had over 15,000 flight hours. The airport started a review. Then they dropped it. His coworkers had a nickname for him. They called him Checkpoint Derek. One of his own fellow agents had filed a complaint about his behavior. That complaint was still under review a year later. But management looked the other way. Reynolds never faced real punishment. He had no reason to think this time would be different. He was very, very wrong. Type accountability in the comments if you think 11 complaints should mean getting fired. The date was Wednesday, January 15, 2026. The time was 3:47 inches the afternoon. Charlotte Douglas International Airport was busy but calm. The private terminal was quiet. This area was for government officials, business executives and other authorized travelers. It was smaller and more private than the regular terminals. About 8 travelers were in line. 2 other TSA agents were on duty. Their names were Melissa Chen and David Park. The terminal manager, Howard Sinclair, was in his back office. 6 security cameras were recording everything. At 3:47 p.m., Justice Timmons Goodson walked in. She wore a business suit. She carried her conference materials and a small carry-on bag. She walked to the checkpoint. She handed over her credentials. This was the same thing she had done 14 times before. Reynolds took her documents. He looked at them. Then he looked up at her. He stared longer than normal. "Reynolds, where are you going?" "Justice Timmons Goodson, Fayetteville. Going home." "Reynolds, this terminal is for authorized people only." "Justice Timmons Goodson, yes. I have judicial clearance." Reynolds did not scan her credentials. He did not type anything into his computer. He just kept staring at her like she did not belong. Agent Chen noticed something was wrong. Reynolds was not following standard procedure. He was not even looking at his screen. If stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe button right now. You will want to see what happens next. Reynolds, I need to check these documents. Step aside. Justice Timmons Goodson stepped to the side. She stayed completely calm. Justice Timmons Goodson, sir, my credentials are real. They are in the federal system. All you need to do is scan them. Reynolds picked up her documents. He turned them over slowly. He held them up to the light. He set them back down without scanning a single one. Reynolds, these look unusual to me. I need to take them to the back. Justice Timmons Goodson, you can verify them right here at your desk. In the system. Reynolds, ma'am, I am the senior agent here. I decide how we do this. He snapped his fingers at Agent David Park. Reynolds, take her bag. Park looked uncomfortable. But he picked up her carry-on. Justice Timmons Goodson watched. She did not raise her voice. She did not step back. Justice Timmons Goodson, I want to speak to your supervisor. Reynolds, I am the supervisor here. Justice Timmons Goodson, then I want to speak to the terminal manager. Reynolds, he is busy. Justice Timmons Goodson, that is not your call to make. Reynolds stepped closer to the counter. He lowered his voice. But everyone nearby could still hear him. Reynolds, ma'am, I need you to lower your tone. Justice Timmons Goodson, I have not raised my voice. Reynolds, you are holding up my line. Justice Timmons Goodson, you are the one holding up the line. Reynolds turned to Agent Melissa Chen. Reynolds, take her to secondary screening. Chen hesitated. She picked up one of the credentials from the desk and looked at it carefully. Agent Chen, Derek, this is a federal judge credential. Reynolds, I can see what it is. Agent Chen, have you run it through the system yet? Reynolds, I will handle this. Chen put the credential back down, but she did not walk away. Reynolds leaned forward toward Justice Timmons Goodson. Reynolds, your papers look fake to me. People like you don't fly private. I have been doing this for 9 years. The entire terminal went silent. Every traveler in that line heard every word. Agent Park stared at the floor. He did not move. Agent Chen slowly reached up to her chest and activated her body camera. Reynolds pointed at the secondary screening door. Reynolds, move, now, or I will have you removed. Justice Timmons Goodson looked at him. She was steady, she was clear-eyed. Justice Timmons Goodson, you will regret those words. She walked to the secondary screening room. She was not running. She was not scared. She had fought bigger battles than this for 27 years. And she was already thinking about what came next. 40 seconds later, Reynolds followed her in. He placed handcuffs on her wrists. Comment unbelievable if you cannot believe he said people like you don't fly private. This is where everything turned. Justice Timmons Goodson sat in the secondary screening room with her hands in cuffs. She had been there for 11 minutes. She had not raised her voice once. Then the door opened. It was Howard Sinclair, the terminal manager. He had been in his back office when Agent Park quietly radioed him. Park had not said much. But the tone of his voice said enough. Sinclair walked out and looked through the one-way glass before entering the room. He saw the handcuffs. He saw who was wearing them. Sinclair pushed open the door. Howard Sinclair, Derek, take those off right now. Reynolds, sir, I have reason to believe her documents are. Howard Sinclair, Derek, I know who this woman is. Take them off. Reynolds looked at Sinclair. He looked at Justice Timmons Goodson. He did not move. Reynolds, I haven't confirmed her identity yet. Howard Sinclair, then let us confirm it right now. At the desk. In front of everyone. They walked back out to the main checkpoint. Sinclair sat down at Reynolds' computer. He pulled up the federal passenger database. He typed in Justice Timmons Goodson's name. The screen loaded in 4 seconds. The profile that appeared was flagged at the highest level. Priority federal judiciary access. Active clearance. Verified photograph, 14 prior visits to this exact terminal, all recorded and logged. A Pentagon security clearance code sitting at the top of the file in bold letters. Sinclair turned the screen around so Reynolds could see it. Reynolds stared at the screen. He said nothing. Then Agent Chen stepped forward. Agent Chen, Derek, she handed you a federal judicial credential and a Pentagon clearance card. You called them fake without running a single check. Without typing one thing. Without looking at the system once. Agent Park finally spoke. "Agent David Park." She asked to speak to the manager 3 times. "You told her he was busy." Reynolds crossed his arms. "I was following my instincts." "Agent Chen, your instincts put a Supreme Court justice in handcuffs." At that moment, 2 other travelers who had been watching from the line stepped forward. The first was Judge Harold Baxter, a retired federal appeals court judge. He had been standing in line the entire time. He had watched everything. "Judge Harold Baxter, I am a retired federal judge. I have known Justice Timmons Goodson for 14 years. What I just watched was wrong on every level." The second was a State Department official who declined to give her name on camera, but she confirmed Timmons Goodson's identity on the spot. Sinclair stood up from the desk. He spoke quietly, but everyone heard him. "Howard Sinclair, remove the handcuffs, Derek. This conversation is over." Reynolds uncuffed Justice Timmons Goodson for the second time that afternoon. She rubbed her wrists. She looked at the screen with her own profile on it. Then she looked at Reynolds. "Justice Timmons Goodson, I want you to remember this moment. Because I will." She did not storm out. She sat down in a chair near the desk. She picked up her phone. She made one call. That call went to her attorney. "Wait until you hear what the next 6 hours looked like. Because this story was just getting started." Within 20 minutes of that phone call, the situation at Charlotte Douglas Airport changed completely. At 4:39 p.m., TSA Regional Director Brenda Holloway arrived at the private terminal. At 4:52 p.m., Airport Security Director Marcus Webb walked in. At 5:15 p.m., 2 agents from the FBI's Civil Rights Division entered the building. This was because Justice Timmons Goodson held active federal judicial credentials. When those credentials are involved in any detainment, federal law requires FBI notification. It is automatic. Reynolds had not known that. But it was the law. And it applied to him the same as everyone else. Director Holloway reviewed Agent Chen's body camera footage first. All 11 minutes and 22 seconds of it. Then she reviewed all 6 security camera feeds from the terminal. Then she reviewed Reynolds' checkpoint computer logs. They showed one thing clearly. Reynolds had never once typed Justice Timmons Goodson's name into the system. He had never scanned a single document. He had formed his conclusion before he ran a single check. Reynolds gave 3 reasons for the detainment. Director Holloway went through each one. Reynolds said her documents appeared to be altered or fake. But Chen's body camera showed him holding the documents for less than 8 seconds total before calling them fake. The federal database had her verified profile active and flagged at the highest access level. Nothing about her documents was altered. Nothing was fake. Reynolds said she was uncooperative and raised her voice. But the security cameras recorded every second. Justice Timmons Goodson never raised her voice once. She made 4 calm, reasonable requests. Reynolds denied all 4. Reynolds said he acted on professional instinct based on 9 years of experience. But his own supervisor, Howard Sinclair, confirmed Reynolds had never once flagged a white traveler for secondary screening in this terminal. Not in 3 years of assignment. Every secondary screening Reynolds had initiated involved a person of color. Every one. At 5:40 p.m., Director Holloway pulled Reynolds from duty on the spot. She suspended him without pay, pending a full investigation. Airport Security Director Webb issued a formal incident report. The federal judicial detainment triggered a mandatory review under 3 separate regulations. Reynolds' attorney arrived at 6 p.m., by then it was too late. One of the FBI agents pulled Howard Sinclair aside. "FBI agent, does your department have a record of prior complaints against this agent?" Howard Sinclair, 11. "In 3 years." The agent wrote that number down and circled it. After the officials cleared the terminal, the remaining travelers slowly gathered near the checkpoint. Several of them had been recording on their phones from the moment Reynolds said, "People like you don't fly private." They came to Justice Timmons Goodson one by one. Some shook her hand. One woman, a nurse traveling home to Greensboro, quietly said, "We saw everything. We are not going to forget this." Justice Timmons Goodson thanked her. Then she missed her 4:15 flight, and her 5:30 flight, and her 7 flight. She did not leave the airport until 8:47 that night. If stories like accountability in powerful places matter to you, hit that subscribe button. This kind of journalism does not happen without your support. 3 passengers had been recording on their phones from inside the line. But it was Agent Chen's body camera footage that changed everything. At 6:30 p.m., Chen submitted her full body camera recording to Director Holloway as part of the official incident report. It was standard procedure. But one of the passengers who had been recording, a freelance journalist named Dana Reyes, had already uploaded her phone footage at 5:22 p.m. The caption read, "TSA just handcuffed a sitting Supreme Court justice at a private terminal in Charlotte because he didn't believe she belonged there. Watch her face. She never even blinked." By 6 p.m., the post had 220,000 views on Twitter. By 8 p.m., it had 1.1 million. Justice Timmons Goodson's name was trending in all 50 states. By 11 p.m., a second, higher-quality clip from another passenger's phone was uploaded. This one captured Reynolds saying the words clearly. "People like you don't fly private." That clip alone reached 7 million views before midnight. By the morning of January 16, the total view count across all platforms had crossed 21 million. The public comments were swift. One person wrote, "She ruled on 4,000 civil rights cases and she still got treated like this." That comment received 670,000 likes. Another wrote, "He said, people like you. That tells you everything." 520,000 likes. The top comment, "She never raised her voice. She never flinched. 27 years of staying composed in a courtroom prepared her for this." 880,000 likes. CNN ran the story at 10 p.m. on January 15. The Washington Post published a full article by midnight. By January 16, BBC, The Guardian, and Al Jazeera had all covered it internationally. The TSA issued a statement on the morning of January 16. It said Reynolds had been suspended and a full investigation was underway. The statement was 6 sentences long. It did not mention Justice Timmons Goodson by name. That made things worse online. Reynolds' attorney released a brief statement. It said Reynolds had followed proper protocol and acted professionally. By noon, that statement had been screenshot and shared over 300,000 times, mostly with mocking responses. This story crossed borders and platforms in less than 24 hours. Share it if you believe more people need to see what accountability looks like. On the 22nd of January 2026, exactly 1 week after the incident, Justice Timmons Goodson filed a federal civil rights lawsuit. Her legal team filed in the U.S. District Court for the Western District of North Carolina. The lawsuit named 3 parties: Agent Derek Reynolds personally, the Transportation Security Administration, and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The claims were direct: unlawful detainment, racial discrimination, violation of federal civil rights protections, deliberate interference with a sitting judicial officer in the line of duty. That last claim was serious. Interfering with a federal officer while carrying out official duties carries its own set of federal penalties. During the evidence phase, what came out was significant. Reynolds' 11 complaints were entered into the record. All 11. Not one had resulted in formal discipline beyond a single written warning. The IBM executive. The American family, with the fake passports. The black female pilot with 15,000 flight hours. All of them on record. All of them ignored. The TSA's own internal audit revealed that Reynolds had initiated secondary screening 34 times in the 12 months before this incident. 31 of those 34 cases involved travelers who were black or Latino. That is 91%. That number became one of the most repeated facts in the case. The TSA also could not explain why Reynolds had no formal bias training on record, none. Not in 9 years. The 3 federal investigations announced in the opening days of the story covered 3 different areas. First, the detainment itself. Second, Reynolds' full complaint history and why no action was ever taken. Third, whether the TSA's oversight system at private terminals created conditions that allowed this pattern to continue unchecked. Now for the number. On the 14th of July 2026, 6 months after the filing, the case settled. The total amount was $19.9 million, $12.4 million in direct damages, $7.5 million in punitive damages, paid by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security on behalf of its agency and agent. Reynolds was officially fired on the 3rd of February 2026. The termination letter cited 3 things: pattern behavior, failure to follow federal verification protocol, and conduct that brought public disrepute to the agency. Reynolds also faced a separate administrative charge under federal law for detaining a sitting judicial officer. His case was referred to the Department of Justice. And here is the part that no major outlet spent enough time on. After the settlement, the TSA announced mandatory body camera activation for all agents working private and VIP terminals, effective immediately. Nationwide. That policy covered over 47 airports. Justice Timmons Goodson's case did not just produce a check. It produced a rule change that applied to every terminal in the country. Type change in the comments if you believe one case really can change policy for everyone. On the 16th of July 2026, 2 days after the settlement, Justice Timmons Goodson stood at a podium in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The courthouse steps. Her courthouse. She held one page of notes. She barely looked at it. Justice Timmons Goodson, I spent 4 hours and 22 minutes at that airport on January 15th. I missed 3 flights home. I sat in a chair in a room with my hands in cuffs. And I thought about every single client, every defendant, every person who had sat across from me in 27 years and wondered whether the system would be fair to them. She paused. Justice Timmons Goodson, I know the answer now. Not as a judge. As a person. She said her grandchildren had seen the video before she could speak to them. Her oldest grandson, who was 12 years old, had one question when she got home. He asked, "Grandma, did you get scared?" She said she told him the truth. Justice Timmons Goodson, I said, no. Because fear is what they were counting on. And I was not going to give that to them. She looked directly at the cameras. Justice Timmons Goodson, I had every credential, every clearance, every legal right to be in that terminal. I had been there 14 times. And it was still not enough. So I am asking the question out loud. If it was not enough for me, what is it like every single day for someone without my credentials and my platform? She ended with this. Justice Timmons Goodson, I did not file this lawsuit for $19.9 million. I filed it so that the next person in that line does not have to. Here is the bigger picture. Black travelers in the U.S. are 54% more likely to be pulled for secondary screening than white travelers on the same flight. TSA complaints involving racial bias increased 31% between 2021 and 2024. And in a federal study of private terminal access disputes, 78% of wrongful detainments involve travelers of color. These are not random numbers. They show a pattern. This case worked because Justice Timmons Goodson had credentials, a lawyer, a platform, and witnesses. Most people standing in that line do not have all of those things. That is the gap this country has not fixed. So let me ask you 3 questions. Do you believe a woman with a Pentagon security clearance, a Supreme Court seat, and 14 prior visits to the same terminal should still need to prove she belongs there? Do you accept a system where 11 racial bias complaints produce 0 discipline, until the 12th victim happens to be a sitting judge? Do we keep waiting for the next video to force the change that should already exist? Because if we do not fix how security agents are monitored, if we do not hold supervisors accountable for looking away, then we are just waiting for the next Reynolds, the next checkpoint, the next handcuffs on someone who did absolutely nothing wrong. And here is the thing that stuck with me most. When Justice Timmons Goodson got home that night, hours late, her grandson asked if she was scared. And she said no. Because fear was what they were counting on. She refused to give it to them. That is the standard. That is the bar. Comment below if you believe TSA complaint records should be fully public. I want your real answer. If stories like this matter to you, hit that subscribe button right now. We are going to keep finding these cases. We are going to keep exposing these patterns. We are going to keep demanding better for every person standing in every line, with or without a Supreme Court credential behind their name. This is not about one agent or one terminal. It is about all of us. See you in the next one.